Hey athletes! In this video, we're going to be working through our hamstring ball curl series, and we are actually going to look at all 4 variations. We're going to start with sort of the easiest version and move up to the hardest progression. The easiest version is our 2-leg low hip position, and then we progress that to our 2-leg high hip variation. And once you've mastered that, there are a couple intermediate steps, but primarily we're moving individuals or athletes into the single leg low hip, and then that moves to our hardest variation of the entire series, the 1-leg high hip exercise. So before we get into the end, we are going to start to talk about what mechanics we're looking to see and feel when we do this exercise. Now I'm going to start with the 2-leg low hip variation. I have deliberately chosen a large ball. When I lie down, I'm looking to see that my calves are supported on the ball itself. I don't want it to be just the feet because it will slide away from me over the course of the exercise. So we're bringing it in, kind of roughly calf. I might be able to feel my ankles as we start. From this position, I'm going wide in the hands to help support the torso so there's no rotation side to side. The head's fully relaxed on the ground. Now, as I mentioned, we're starting with the low hip variation. So all you're going to do is squeeze the butt enough just to get it off the ground. All right? We're not trying to go up through like a bridge. We're just trying to get it elevated off the floor. Now from here, you're going to pull your toes up to the shins like I've got strings on the big toe, and I'm yanking them towards me. And I want you to imagine that you're holding onto those strings during the entire exercise for the full rep, the full set. From here, low hips, I'm now pulling the ball with my heels, keeping my butt down all the way in where the knees are now sort of above the rib cage. Essentially, as far as I can flex my knees. From here, gently release back out. So once again, working for volume of the low hip position. Now once that starts to feel easier, you can challenge yourself with an increasing height of the hips. The more you squeeze the glutes, the more you lift, the more challenge there is to the entire posterior chain. So if I was to go into a straight position from here, and I did the exact same pull, the straightness of my hips would actually lever my entire body up into the sky. I haven't lost my good toe-up position. I'm still pulling from the heels, and I'm still attempting to close this angle as much as possible. The key change was how much I had to use my hips to stabilize that position, and the fact that my body continued to go up, so I was no longer resting on my lower ribs, I was resting much closer to my traps. So once again, one more high hip 2-leg position. Pivot up through, and release. Once you've mastered that variation for volume, we now move into our single leg. Now, same idea. Some individuals like to keep their knee just up in the sky. Personally, I rest my heel on the opposite thigh. Same idea. Low hip position, brace and stabilize. Pull the knee in, and gently release. Master both sides. Make sure that both have control. And then from here, we move into our high hip variation. Now, as I mentioned, this is our hardest version of the exercise. Even though we classify it into low hip and high hip, you could reasonably play with intermediate steps in between. You could do a medium hip position. Essentially, you're just looking to challenge yourself for what you're capable of. So, final demonstration, arms anchored, hip is up, brace the abs, 1 leg high hip through, and gently release. Complete your full set. Switch. Make sure that the heel is on the opposite thigh. Brace to position. Squeeze up through. And gently release. Now with all of these variations, tempo or speed is very important. You should not be rushing. You should not be pulling it in and bouncing it back out. You should be able to maintain a 1/4 of a second pause on the inside position before you release it back out. We need to make sure the hamstring is able to contract and control in a very flexed position of the knee.